All righty, welcome to the Way Out Recovery Hour. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. My name's Bob Sheritz. I'm your host. And remember that asking for help is the first step. I hope everybody's staying cool out there. We had another incredibly hot weekend, and there's no end in sight, I think. I think we're going to hit a little bit of a dip, but I hear we're going to have another, it's going to get hotter as the week goes along. But I hope everybody is staying hydrated and taking care of themselves. Really excited to be in here on a Monday like I always am. I know some of you out there have the Monday blues. I don't get those, although that may change. I don't get the Monday blues. I get the grateful Mondays, man, and really look forward to all the help that we can provide during the week. Anybody who's going to call us or come through our door, we are happy to help, and we are excited about the week that's upcoming in order to help people. I have a guest in studio with me today, Jeremy, and we were out in the lobby earlier. He had said, I'm really excited to go to work every day, and every job that I've had hasn't always been like that, and I feel the same way. If you need to get a hold of the Way Out, we are at 661-296-4444. Our website is the Way Out the wayoutrrecoveryscv.com. And again, really, really excited and grateful to be here on a Monday, this wonderful program. Today our topic and our discussion is going to be just generally about addiction and recovery. One of the wonderful things that we get to experience being in the business of helping people recover from addiction is that there are so many wonderful, wonderful stories. And those of us that are in the world of recovery and have been in the world of addiction really understand what a big deal it is to be clean and sober today, to have a quality of life, and to just be living life at its fullest, especially when you compare it to what it used to look like. Again, in studio today with me is Jeremy Sifuentes. I missed that part. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. He is the owner of Undecided Apparel. What do you guys do over there at Undecided?
We primarily specialize in custom printing for all sorts of apparel.
Okay, so custom screen prints and do you have is there a clothing line specific to Undecided?
We're working on our own clothing line, but at the moment we specialize just in having anyone come in the store and help them out with whatever they need, put on anything they want.
And where's your store located?
It's located on 19347 Soledad Canyon Road in Canyon Country.
So in the same shop on Soledad, in the middle of Canyon Country, same shopping center as like Taco Bell? Or where are you guys at?
No, I'm located right next door to the Dollar Tree, where the TJ Maxx is, the big
got it.
Soledad
Yeah,
and
nice. So Soledad and White's Canyon.
Correct.
Soledad and White's Canyon. Go see Undecided Apparel. How do they what's your website?
ShopUndecided.com.
ShopUndecided.com. Phone number?
661-310-3700.
So not only because you guys do such a wonderful job at your shop and the printing that you do and all the designs that come out of there and your customer service is wonderful. Aside from that, so I want to tell people that are listening, go out there and go to your store. We want to do that. But besides that, anytime that we get somebody who's in recovery, as an extra addition, we want to sort of highlight that. One more reason is you've got somebody who's coming out of really a world that a lot of people don't understand. And I think that as we sit, I'm always sort of at a loss to try to get anybody who hasn't experienced addiction to understand the pain and the suffering of that world. Mm-hmm. And to try to get them to experientially sort of feel what that feels like, because then you have such a comparison that you can compare what your life looks like today. And in that right there, you can't help but be grateful, Mm-hmm. Speaking of addiction, let's go back to when you were in the middle of yours. What did that look like for you?
Wow.
It's like,
to be honest,
man, you're taking me back.
You said in the middle of my addiction?
Well, what was it like for you at the worst of it? What did it feel like for you? What did every
To be
day look
honest,
like? Yeah.
it got to the point where I wasn't sleeping anymore. I was up, all hours of the night doing what I was doing, and next thing I know, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I got to get to work, so I'm at work coming down. Middle of the day, I'm calling my guy to see if he's available.
Right.
I get out of work at 5, 6 o'clock, and I'm on my way to go pick up, and it was a routine for months and months. And before that, it was just kind of going from my teenage years to becoming an adult. Once, I hit the adult age, I had no one to, listen to, no one to tell me what was wrong and bad, even though I did, but I was at that age where I didn't care, you know what I mean? So it was, it was real messy, real sloppy, and at one point, I felt like I was dead, you know what I mean? I felt like I had no more living to do, and that's when I called my dad originally. I told him what was going on, and he knew from I started using when I was 14. I didn't get sober until I was 22. So, my parents knew what was going on, but they were in denial for the most part. But yeah, the last few days, it was me pretty much just felt like I was dead. I started hallucinating off of what I was using, and it was kind of just, it was time for an end. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
So a couple of things is, the largest age group, you brought up turning 18. When I was an adult, all of a sudden I kind of had, maybe not nobody to tell me what to do, but I'm not listening anyway, because don't you know I'm an adult now or something like that, right? And the largest group of age group in addiction treatment is between the ages of, say, 17 and 25. They call them transitional age youth. And there's this thing that happens, and the reason I'm talking about it is because I want people to pay attention, is when somebody is 17 years old, there is an amount of, the parents still have some responsibility, and they can still sort of give some direction in a person's life. And there's this thing that takes place, I think, in all of our lives. I don't know why anybody ever just put the arbitrary number 18 on it, but when we turn 18 years old, all of a sudden from this day to this day, we think, nobody can tell me what to do anymore or something like that. And it's real important for families out there to understand that as far as addiction is concerned, that change in age makes no difference for the process that's going on. It makes absolutely no difference for the process that's going on. And just because a person is an adult versus an adolescent, it makes no difference in terms of being able to get in there and intervene in somebody's life and try to help them, And it's funny, you talked about, or interesting, you talked about your parents knew, but they were in denial. And there's this sort of joke that goes around amongst people that are in recovery where we say, we were the last to know. Like everybody in my life knew I had a problem. And when I finally, like you, when I finally went to somebody and said, hey, I think I have a problem here, they're like, hello, right? Like, duh, yes, you do, right? But you talked about living in, being up all night and hallucinating and being in that spot right there where you just... During that process, did you ever have any periods where you tried to reel it in and tried to get it together and tried to stop on your own?
No.
It was just full bore, let's go.
It was, I started using when I was 15 and it became, every other week, and then it started becoming every day. And then with my parents getting a divorce, that didn't help. My dad moving out, my mom, having a new husband, so to speak. And, it was a real tough time for me. I didn't really know what direction to go into. But, with all that, I didn't really care about getting better. I was always told, there's people who are functioning addicts. So I figured, okay, well, I'm a functioning addict, I'm using every day. And, so yeah, I was using every day and I didn't really care what was going on. And then it got to the point where I needed help, and I knew that if I didn't get help, I was either going to get killed or end up killing myself or end up ODing, and I didn't want any of that.
Right. Well, it's you talked about certain stressors. Parents get divorced. That is, it's interesting when we do our work in treatment. A lot of what we do is trying to identify where are the stressors in our lives? Where did it take off? And you got somebody who's 15 years old. My hunch is you started using before that. Were you smoking weed or anything before 15?
Yeah.
When did it start for you?
Smoking.
When did
weed?
anything start at all?
What
What did you start with, and when did you start?
I started with just simply, pot, and then it ended up with me. I was smoking pills. I was snorting pills. I was, smoking meth. I was doing a bunch of stuff.
So you start using marijuana at what age?
13 or 14.
Well, and the reason I ask is it's really important for us to understand that age is actually in today's, well, it's right around. So between the ages of 12 and 17 is where almost 100%, but it's not quite 100%. Almost 100% of drug use starts between the ages of 12 and 17. In today's world, closer to 12. And so when you say 13, that's kind of like the magic age, if you will. A lot of my friends started in the summer between 7th and 8th grade is when it really took off, right around that age group right there. And so you got the normal stressors of a teenage life. And what happens in addiction is there's this, without making this a whole show on how addiction works in the brain, your stress levels, anybody's normal stress levels, when they rise, there's a chemical process that takes place. And if we have healthy coping skills in our life, if we're sitting down for dinners talking to our family, if we're involved in sports, if we're eating healthy, if we're exercising, if we're doing some things that manage that stress on a regular basis, then that chemical stress doesn't necessarily build up to a level where it feels like kind of overload. But what happens in a lot of teenagers' lives is they're walking around and they have the stress of, what's the most stressful thing at 13 years old? Your social interactions. There's some other chemical processes that are going on at that age group. Kids are starting to experience hormonal changes, puberties, all that sort of different things. So you got those stressors. You got the stress of going from like elementary schools to junior high schools, big transitions. If there's any sort of divorce or fighting or anything going on in the house, you got those kind of stressors going on. So you got a lot going on in somebody who's 13 years old. And then so they're walking around with all this stress with no way to really manage it. And all of a sudden, somebody comes along and says, here, try this, right? And what happens inside of the brain is I take that hit when I'm 13 years old. And for the first time in however long, I don't know, that 8 minutes later, all this stress goes, whew. It's like we go, like we just took a big breath for the first time, right? And this process takes place inside of the brain, where it says something like, Jeremy, I don't know what you just did, but whatever it was, keep doing that. Because we like it, because it manages that stress, And so now we're smoking weed. Maybe we're not doing it every day. Maybe we're not doing it all the time, but we're doing it, right? And then bigger stressor comes along. You're 15 years old, and your parents get a divorce, right? It's important that when we talk about stressors, we're not... the divorce and what's going on in your parents' life, and any parent who's listening, is that somebody else's addiction is not your fault. It doesn't cause addiction. What causes the addiction is not being able to manage those stressors. So you're 15 years old, and you're already using pot, and here comes this big old stressor in your life. What do you think the brain's going to do? What happened for you?
It got worse.
It got worse, right?
And I don't primarily blame my parents, divorce on my addiction. I had suffered a trauma when I was a little kid, and kind of, what had happened between, 5 and 6, was blocked out for many, many years. And then when I finally went to rehab, it's kind of when I opened everything up, realized these were the problems that I was facing. Going to rehab definitely saved my life. If I didn't go, I have no idea where I would be today.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing when you can get into a rehab where they're doing the kind of work. And I love that you're talking about, you said, I experienced a trauma when I was 5 or 6 years old. And that is so very common. When you get into a rehab and you have quality clinicians in there who are able to have these really, really intense, sort of really safe places where you can go, here's what happened. right? And you find a safe place to do that. There's so much healing in that. That's in the business, we call that trauma-informed care. Trauma-informed care is really, really important because I can, let's say, here, I'll give you a little self-disclosure. When I was 7 years old, I was molested. Okay, that's my personal history. I blocked that. I never told anybody about it. What happened with that was, as I go through my life, every time I try to get close to somebody, it doesn't matter who it is. Every time I try to get close to somebody and I start forming relationships, this kind of weird internal thing happens to me where I get real scared because people are getting close, you know? And I don't know that it's triggering those old events. I have no idea that that's going on, you know? Because I've done such a good job of going, we're not going to look at that. We're not going there, right? And what I don't know is that is causing just all this stress in my life all the time. All the time. It's constantly there. It's constantly there. It's constantly there. And the only thing that manages that stress is when I do drugs. And so what happens is I got to do more and more drugs to keep that down, to keep that down, to keep that down. And I think a lot of people don't understand that when you get to a quality rehab, when you get to a place where you can find that safe space and you, for the first time, like let that go, that there's an amazing transformation that takes place in that.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? It sounds to me like that transformation took place for you.
Yeah, it definitely did. You know, I had a great doctor, Dr. Irwin, and she had really helped me, you know, go through everything that I had gone through, you know, from being a little kid to the parents' divorce to using and, you know, figuring out what was the problem, so to speak, with me. But, you know, the more I talk about it, the easier it is, you know, to go through. As far as the addiction, you know, I had someone tell me the other day, you know, another day could just be your last sober day, and that kind of just stuck to me. So, you know, I live, you know, every day I read, you know, just for today. I start my day off with that, and kind of keeps me in a right place. And, you know, last week I wanted to use, and it happens. You know, there's days where you feel like absolute garbage, and there's some days where you feel like you're on top of the world. And it's kind of, you know, what they taught me in rehab is kind of what I've used every day to kind of cope with my issues.
Right. Yeah, you know, I think, I don't know if this is a myth, but I think that some people get this idea in their head, because I experienced this in working with a lot of recovering people, is they think that when they get sober, that life's all of a sudden just going to be like smooth sailing, right? And then they'll get hit with a day that, like you're talking about, where, you know, I got whatever going on in my life, and I'm just like, man, the old me, I know exactly what I'd be doing right now. I'd be pounding some beers, smoking this, doing that, whatever, right? And I don't do that anymore. And so, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to face those stressors. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to face bumps in the road in life. And so a real, true world of living in recovery anticipates that, okay, what am I going to do when I hit that bump in the road? Who am I going to call? What resources do I have? You know, you're talking about, I start my day with a Just for Today. Just for Today is it's a book of daily reflections. And so it helps me to sit and to meditate and to think about what's going on. And I can share that with other people. And it's all recovery based. And one of the things about the recovery process from addiction that you know as well as I do is that today is the day I got to stay sober. I can't do all my work today and then never have to worry about it ever again. Every day is going to bring on that new recovery process. And so to have a book like that, or people to call, or the combination of that, you know, where I start my day going, okay, today I'm a drug addict just like I was, you know, 15 years ago. And I got to remember that today. And what am I going to do to face this world in a sober state of mind, you know, in a recovery place. Mm-hmm. So yeah, really, really cool. And I love that you're talking about, you started your journey in rehab. You know, one of the things about addiction and about recovery is that we can't do it by ourselves, you know, and we have to have help. And there are professionals out there, and there are places out there that are really going to help us, and that's important for us to tap into that.
Yeah, so. It's funny that you say that, because before I had gone to rehab for the 30 days, I was in several outpatient programs all throughout high school, and I told my mom, the longer I'm in this, the longer I'm not going to be sober for. Right. And then they couldn't control me. I was doing what I was doing, and then they took me out of that, and I had I had gone through so much stuff because of addiction, and it's not worth it at the end of the day. It's really not.
All right. This is the Way Out Recovery Hour. I'm Bob Sheritz. I'm in studio with Jeremy Sifuentes, owner of Undecided. We will be right back after this.